Stas23 here. In today's knife therapy, I have for you the Kansept Entity. The Entity is a design collaboration with custom knife maker Nalu. He's out of Hawaii, and he has gained a lot of popularity over the years. He's been around for a good little while because I remember whenever I first started getting into the YouTube scene, he was starting to really take off. Before the Entity model, the only other design collaboration that Nalu had done to start off his production collaborations was his Z82 model that KIZER brought out. Now, this is a Vanguard series knife, so it's a more budget-friendly knife. And you know, if you weren't looking for a more premium Nalu design, this is a good way to get into one of his knives. And then we have Kansept bring out a more premium model from both of them are flippers. And unfortunately, his books are closed, so it's kind of hard to get a hold of one of his customs. And they're also rather pricey, so this production model may be one of your best bets if you want an Nalu design. Now, you can get the Entity in so many different variations. I'll start popping them up on the screen now. And the one that I have with the full flat grind is $186, and all of them are in that same price range except for the two Damascus versions, which are $183, and I'm not sure what their Damascus is. It may be the 9CR. I'm not certain on that one, but they definitely hit every different avenue that you could possibly think of. You have coated, non-coated, blasted, non-blasted. I think you have two different blade grinds. You have a full flat grind, and I think the other one's a hollow grind. They sent me the full flat grind, and I was enjoying it so far. Let's get some specs out of the way so you can have an idea of the size of the Entity. You have an overall length of 8.13 inches, so it's a full-size knife. You have a blade length of 3.52 inches, a grip area from this flipper area all the way to the back of 4 inches. Your handle scale thickness is 0.48, so just a little shy of your half-inch thickness average. And the thickness, blade stock thickness is 0.138. And the behind the edge thickness comes down to a pretty thin edge at around 13 to 14 thousandths behind the edge. So let's take a close look at this. You have a nice clip point blade with that straight clip, so it's going to have somewhat of the same belly as a drop point. Full flat grind on this one with a nice black wash finish. They did a really good job on it. You have a top swedge that tapers all the way down to that tip, giving you a very acute tip for piercing and doing those drag cuts or detail cutting. You have a nice sharpening choil that clears the plunge and should give you a good bit of sharpening life before it starts to widen up in the back right there. You have medium traction jimping that I overshot whenever I did hold it in the saber grip. However, I didn't find it necessary because you have a nice flat portion to rest your thumb on, and you're also locked in because of that flipper tab. Now let's do a little cutting with the Entity and see how well it performs. The knife came with a pretty good edge out of box. It was slicing very well through the cardboard, and since you have a straight clip point instead of a curved clip point, you have that lower tip, so your belly's not as abrupt. It's kind of like a drop point, the same belly as a drop point at least. And during the slicing, I had no problem sliding out of the cardboard. It sliced pretty well all the way to the end. Now we move to the pine 2x4 to test that edge, how well it's still biting, and the ergos. And I found it was comfortable in the hammer grip. That was where I really felt, you know, the best power and the most comfort. I was really locked in with a bunch of power. However, when I did increase that pressure, I did get a minor hot spot from that forward finger choil, the edge of it. It's you know, not somewhat of a 90-degree edge, and there's a point in the back of the scales that was kind of digging into my pinky as well. Other than that, it performed very well, and I was happy with the results. Now we move on to the 1/2 inch twisted sisal rope. The edge came to me with not the most bite to it, but it still did fairly well. It just required a little bit more downward pressure when I was cutting into the rope. The blade shape is great for cutting on a flat surface because you have just the right amount of belly, and I had good control, I noticed, in that pinch grip, nice and comfortable, and I ended up making 40 cuts through the sisal rope, and the edge still felt pretty good toward the end of that as well. One thing that I think would have really helped out here, and I wish I would see more companies do this, is I wish they would lay the edge bevel back some. This one was around 24 degrees per side. I would have loved to see it at least 20, but 17 would have been great. That's whenever I usually notice that performance really starting to shine through, when you have a thinner edge bevel. And then thinner behind the edge is great as well. And this one has pretty good geometry behind the edge to come from factory. That acute tip and that low tip that is in line with that pivot really made those drag cuts very easy, and it still was very nice and sharp right there at the tip. I noticed it when I was cutting through this leather, and the slicing capabilities right there, you know, that's another thing that's very easy because of that upward belly at the tip. I'm glad it wasn't too much, but it was just the right amount for pretty much all the cutting I'd like to do with my EDC blades. And here it was still doing well. Now this is where I noticed that coating was it was causing a little bit of friction on that rubber, especially in this one, because this one's a little bit thicker and a little bit more dense. But it got through it just fine, no problems whatsoever. I'm noticing here that edge is way better than I thought it was, still cutting very cleanly, and I was happy so far. I was worried about the bite to the edge when I got to the denim, because this is very thick denim rolled up, and it has a lot of seams in it because there's a lot of pockets. This is the back part of the pocket area, and you have that thick part where your belt goes. But I was very surprised to see it still performing pretty well. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed that cutting footage. Now let's check out the action and deployment on the knife. This knife has a very snappy detent to it. Nice push button. If you want to do a push button, it comes out with some authority. Riding on ceramic cage ball bearings and a ceramic detent ball. And if you want to do the light switch, it also comes out, but it comes out a little bit snappier if you do that push button. So either way, just fine. The retraction, once you get it past that detent ball, a few shakes and it'll drop shut. I find that to be a great action. It doesn't have to be a guillotine for me to like the smoothness of it. Now let's take a look at these scales, and this is something that I really liked about the knife. First off, they did a dark blast. You see a lot of the bead blasted finishes, which is a lighter gray. I like this darker this darker blasted finish. It really makes it pop, I think. And not to mention, they have these speed holes in here that if you can see in there, they're nice and polished in there, so it gives you a nice contrast with the light. And I think it looks visually, aesthetically pleasing. Your scales have been contoured, and you have these holes that are lightening it up, as well as some internal milling in there. And let's check it out. You have some milling on the lock side, as you can see, as much as they possibly could back here in the back. And then, even though they have those speed holes in there, they also have some weight relieving on the back side right there. And they did a great job with the balance point, which is absolute perfection in my opinion, and it keeps the knife feeling very light in hand. Let's check out the weight real quick. First off, in grams, 133.5 grams and 4.7 ounces, which is not a featherweight, but I had no issues in pocket. Now let's go back to the front right here. You have a Torx T8 on the pivot. You also have it looks like a brass pivot ring right there. I don't know if it's brass or anodized titanium, or it could be steel. You have T6 on the body screws. You have a black coated titanium backspacer that is flush with the scales. Flip it over this side. You have T6 on the Torx for this deep carry pocket clip that is tip up, right hand carry only. And let's check this out in the pocket. Now, even though I think the pocket clip doesn't go with it, and it's a stainless steel pocket clip at that, it did go in and out of the pocket fairly well. It goes in nicely, and pretty much the entire knife is into the pocket. You have a little bit sticking up. Now, I noticed that in my jeans, it would want to cock the knife this way some. I'm not sure why that is, maybe because of the blasting. And another thing I noticed, not so much with my jeans, but whenever I carried this with my my lighter weight shorts, that my shorts were getting bunched up in this lock bar relief. That's why I love seeing the lock bar relief on the inside, but oh well. You do have a stainless steel hardened lock bar interface right there, so you're not having titanium on hardened steel. The lockup on this thing is pretty impressive. When I say bank vault lockup, absolutely no movement in any direction whatsoever. It's sitting at around, say, 30%, so you still have some more life left on that lock. The access to that lock bar is very, very good because you have this cutout right here, and the lock sits a little bit proud of the show side scale. You also have that nice chamfer right there to get your finger in there. Very easy to disengage that lock, and very comfortable as well. Now, I was talking about some minor hot spots I had in that cutting, and one of them was this point right here in this choil area. It's not, a hard 90-degree angle, but these are contoured titanium scales, so I just noticed it's just a little thin in that area, so when it's really bearing down, I would notice that. And where my finger was landing, my pinky was hitting this point right here, and it caused a minor hot spot. Now, that was only when I was pushing down really hard on the knife, so, a lot of people won't be using this type of knife for that type of cutting anyway, but something that, I just wanted to let you know. I have a medium size, I wear a medium size glove, and that's where my finger lands, is right on that point. Now for some quick size comparisons, we have the Kansept Bulldozer and the Kansept Predatout. Pivot to pivot, it's about the same length as the Bulldozer. It's a little bit longer, and it's a little bit shorter than the Predatout. Next up, we have the Spyderco PM2 and the Para 3. It's about the same length as the PM2. You have definitely the same cutting edge, or around the same cutting edge. You have about the same grip area, or even more grip area than the PM2. And lastly, we have the Hogue Ritter RSK and the RSK Mini. It's about the same length as the full-size RSK. All right, now for the nitpicks and complaints. First, I would love, like I said before, to see them bring this edge bevel down to at least 20. Love to see it at 17, because you have nice blade geometry. It's not the best performer with such a wide edge bevel, but that's not the biggest deal because I can lay it back if I want to. Also, I talked about it, the minor hot spot in here and this point. That just happens sometimes depending on how, what they do to this part of the handle. That's why I kind of like to see this neutral, because you're kind of forced into this area. Not the end of the world, and it was comfortable for my day-to-day task. Just notice it during those more aggressive cuts. Also, at this price point, I definitely think that this was an afterthought, this pocket clip. I'm okay with this if they would have made this a titanium pocket clip like, they've done many times before. I mean, look, even on this budget Predatout, you have a milled titanium pocket clip. I would have much rather see that become a titanium clip at least, and I think it would have looked nicer, more classier, with a titanium pocket clip. However, this one functions probably better. Like I said, I did notice this cutout bunching up in my shorts pocket, so I would have loved to see that on the inside. But other than that, overall value at $186 for a Nalu design knife, I think it's more than fair. You have nice contouring on the titanium. You have some nice pattern speed holes, if you want to call them that. Very nice blade shape, excellent action, fairly comfortable. Very snappy action at that. Nice and slicey blade. Yeah, I definitely think I could recommend this one at $186. You know, there's something for everybody with the amount of variations they released there. So there you go. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.